Hello, welcome to everyone joining this session. I am Cesare Stefanini, faculty in the Biomedical Engineering Department and also in the Healthcare Engineering Innovation Center at Khalifa University. Today we will discuss a little bit about the impact of the recent coronavirus pandemic, the current pandemic, on respiratory issues and basically our response also as university and academia in this context. We are biomedical engineers, so we are not medical doctors. The medical content, let's say, of my presentation will be minor. I will focus more on the engineering aspects. But still, as biomedical engineers, we are addressing technology and measures to actually fight against this outbreak. Here you can see actually the global situation, right? We all know that numbers are growing. We all know that unfortunately also critical cases are growing. And this number, the critical case, is actually at the center of our activity. Why? Because those critical cases are the ones needing intensive care. And intensive care is provided in intensive care units. And in those units you have a number of technologies assisting the patient. So what is the problem here, or the potential problem in some countries in particular? That the number of intensive care unit beds per population is in some places not, let's say, high enough for potential increasing numbers. This is the issue. Here you see that the average number globally is 0.7, but this number can be lower. I mean, the number of critical cases is 0.7 every 100,000 citizens, but the number of beds in developed countries is 10, 30, so it's very high. But in some countries it can be as low as 0.1, 0.5. So you can see that there may be a mismatch between the demand and the offer. So what we are trying to address here, one machine in particular that is available in intensive care units, and this machine is called mechanical ventilator. This is a machine assisting patients in breathing activity. And this machine is typically one per bed. Okay, what the characteristic of this machine is that quite sophisticated equipment that also is a bit expensive, $30,000 to $50,000 typically, and also this machine is produced in reasonable numbers, but for normal situations, right? So in case there is a shortage of this machine, this is where we want to focus our activity. That's where we focused our activity, actually. So here you see a little bit numbers you know about the distribution of cases around the world. Again, in developed countries, we are managing well. UAE, for example, is the country that is doing the highest number of tests per population, and also intensive care units and beds are many. But of course, in this picture, you don't see other countries. So, and also the trend is increasing, right? We see that numbers are increasing, and pharmaceutical solution will require some time. So this is just to explain how a need is emerging on basically technologies that can assist intensive care units and patients. So this global need for ventilators is known, and you can see that there are news addressing this. There are crowdfunding initiatives in Europe, for example, about this, and many research centers, many institutions are actually trying to cope with this demand. Here you can see a number of attempts worldwide, and all these attempts have in common one key aspect: increasing numbers at affordable price, at affordable cost. And that's where our activity is also focusing. What we want to do, we want to develop something that can be potentially produced in large numbers and that can also be cost effective. And a key component of all these attempts is a manual resuscitator. This balloon you can see in the center of the slide is basically a system that can be operated manually for emergency situations, and is not expensive, but of course requires manual use. And like in current practice, of course, this device cannot be operated autonomously, right? So what researchers are trying to do is to make this system automated as a substitute, as a surrogate for ventilators. And in the next slide, you will see actually our own activity at Khalifa University. So this is what we developed. Here you can see a mannequin. So this is a physical simulator, so-called physical simulator with artificial lungs and intubation. So this simulates an intubated patient. And this simulator is connected with the machine we developed, along, taking inspiration also from what other teams are doing around the world. And in this machine, we can see the manual resuscitator enclosed in a transparent box. What happens in this box? Basically, in this box, there is some air getting introduced with controlled pressure, and so this air basically squeezes the emergency resuscitator and provide inspiration in patient for the patient. So basically provides air to lungs. Another tube you can see in the central lower area of this picture is the tube instead getting air from the patient, so for the expiration phase. So inspiration is provided by this squeezing action, let's say, on the balloon, controlled. I will talk about control in a minute. And expiration is received by the machine and modulated again with valves. So we can decide how much airflow the intensity of this flow. So you see 4 dials in this machine, and these 4 dials are taking care of 4 key parameters in assisted ventilation. One parameter is the frequency, so how many breaths per minute you give to the patient. Another parameter is pressure. So we need to take care that pressure is not too low nor too high, not to create damage to the lungs and to provide ventilation. Then, of course, we have the volume, how much quantity of air we provide to the patient for each breath. This is called the tidal volume. It's not the capacity of the lungs. The whole capacity of the lungs are liters. And tidal volume, which is the volume you give at each breath, is a fraction of it. Is approximately 300, 400 cubic centimeter, so a fraction of a liter. Then you also have so-called ventilation ratio or expiration to inspiration ratio. So how much time you give for inspiration and how much time you give for expiration. Usually when we breathe, this ratio is a bit shorter, this time is a bit shorter for inspiration and longer for expiration, and this is also what we do in ventilation, maybe giving even more time to expiration to let oxygen really operate in the lungs. We also have in this device one port. The little tube is not well visible in this picture, but a little green tube that is connected to the resuscitation bag, and that tube is for adding oxygen. So normal air as a composition of oxygen, nitrogen, CO2. For ventilated patients, we may want to increase oxygen, and this is actually what is done in intensive care units. So with the same amount of tidal volume, you give more oxygen, and blood can get oxygenated much better. So this is a little bit a description of the functionalities. So in this machine we do have pressure control, and this pressure control can be used also, but when sedation is not there or is very minor, the patient may need to provide to the machine his intention, her intention, and to let the machine ventilate in a very natural way. So here you have a little bit of respiratory physiology, and why I am showing this picture, to explain that the squeezing action of the resuscitator is for the inspiration phase, where in physiological conditions is the patient himself or herself creating inspiration action by contracting muscles, right? So muscle contraction is assisted with a gentle pressure by the machine. Instead, in the expiration or exhalation phase, the thoracic cage or the rib cage has an elastic spring-back behavior. So in that phase, basically the machine doesn't need to provide, let's say, a vacuum or a suction or to remove air from lungs, but actually is the spring-back behavior of the cage itself providing this action. And why I'm pointing out this, because vacuum absolutely or pressure lower than atmospheric pressure must be avoided in patients in pneumonia or respiratory disabled patients, because otherwise we can create a collapse of some internal structure in the lungs. What are those structures? Those structures are the alveoli you see in this picture. In this picture you see those tiny cavities surrounded by capillaries, and those cavities are connected with the airways by means of bronchioles, so very tiny tubes. We are talking about anatomical structure with size fraction of millimeter, so very small. And we need to keep those structures open. Otherwise, there may be a blockage and air cannot reach the site of air-blood exchange, which is in fact, which are the capillaries surrounding the alveoli. Nature and our physiology is actually helping to keep those cavities open by producing a special substance, very liquid, called surfactant. In this slide, you see bubbles blown by a child and an insect standing on water. So this, let's say, a property of water creating like a film is due to surface tension. And surface tension in this case is something nice. We want to have, of course, creators walking on water or kids playing with bubbles. But what happens in lungs is that we need to decrease this tension, this film-like behavior. Otherwise, the alveoli can collapse, can basically shrink their size, pulled by this action. And in patients with infection, with inflammatory condition, this property of surfactant to keep alveoli well open may be impaired. And that's why we always need to be sure to give a minimum pressure to the lungs. This pressure is called positive end expiratory pressure, or PEEP. This is a number, a magic number ranging between 5 centimeter of water. This is a unit of pressure in respiratory medicine, and 10, 5 to 10. So this is a number we need to guarantee, especially in those patients that require, and maybe not all patients require, mild cases, they may be required just a little bit of extra oxygen and even no automated ventilation. This is the latest development of our machine. Here you can see a screen, so we added a display. Nowadays, tablets can be very cost effective. You can find tablets much less than $100. And they are nice. They have a nice resolution. You can upload apps that can show very well time series of signals. And this is what we did. So our machine now is Bluetooth connected with a device, with an external tablet, and we can monitor all several parameters. What is next? What our next plans? Our next plans are to, of course, add remaining features, such as proper filters. We need to be sure that air from patient that is rich in viral agent, we need to clean this air. So filter is a very important aspect, and in general the procedure of cleaning and disinfection of these machines. And also, of course, filtering the air that is given to the patient. So we need to clean both flows, the inspiration and expiration. There is actually a filter already available that is actually taking care of maintaining this separation between the patient and the environment, but given the extreme let's say infectious nature of this virus, we want to add extra filtering, let's say. And then, of course, as I said, we want to add some more interactive action with the patient. So we want to read other parameters, other vital parameters, with colleagues in biomedical engineering department. Here we are studying how to basically extract data on heartbeat, on fatigue of the patient, and myographic maybe signals. So we can add features to the machine to be listening very well to the patient. This is what anesthesia specialists, they know very well. During surgery, they are the ones really taking care of the respiratory physiology and other physiological aspects of the patients, and they know well how it's important to detect even the minimal reaction of the patient. So the more the machine is interactive, the better. Of course, this technology will need to be later certified, undergo clinical trials. So the road is not short. Our journey is not short, but we are trying to optimize actions to have something ready not in the long term, let's say. So the idea is to have months, like time frame, not years. Also, I'd like to stress that what we are doing is trying to meet those two requirements that I mentioned: the low cost and the high numbers, right? So we are using components that are off the shelf, that are easily to find, that are maybe you can change component, several producers making the same component, so you can select in case there is shortage of a component produced by a supplier. And the cost, so with no profit, of course, but we are in a humanitarian here context. The cost of the machine we want to guarantee is in below, let's say, $500, everything included, including the production, the manpower, components, and I think we can meet this target. Okay, that's it. In my last slide, I want to acknowledge collaborators and actually initiators of this project. So Khalifa University leadership, and then experts, medical experts from hospitals, in particular Zayed military hospitals. We've received very precious information from them, and they are carefully reviewing what we are doing, telling us where we are wrong, where we are right. I mean, engineers again are good in designing, in making things, but of course we need advice on the medical side. So from Zayed Military Hospital, I want to acknowledge Professor Ashraf, Dr. Abdallah, and Dr. Saif, and of course collaborators in biomedical engineering, colleagues Kinda, Hassan, Hani, Federico, Anup, Mohammed, Yaya, and Hessa. Also, I want to say that this is a project we are sharing with the international community. We do have collaboration with institutions in other countries. Also, we are planning, especially for the next steps, to establish collaborations with Italy. I'm from Italy. In particular, one institution in Italy is called the Scuola Superiore Sant'Anna. And so the plan is to from Khalifa University, from the UAE, the excellence we have here, also to build something that has a wide reach in the community. Thank you very much. What I will be doing now is to receive your questions. I know there is you can send questions, so I will now open my email and see the questions you are sending. One second. So, first question is, Dr. Cesare, what made you think of this solution? What was the inspiration for the development of your ventilator? So everything started March 29, so less than a month ago. I received a call from the executive vice president of Khalifa University, and he told me, Cesare, can we do something on ventilators? And he sent me a few references of international, let's say, attempts in this field. And he asked me, can we do, and can we do it quick? So basically, it was a suggestion by someone in the university who showed me a few websites and things. So basically, in this case, the original contribution was how to implement and how to really design our own system with our own control. So that's where then the invention part, if you want, was initiated. The concept was already a little bit there in the international state of the art. So what was the inspiration for the development of your ventilator? Inspiration came from doctors. So basically the main help and advice came from doctors, and they helped a lot in getting inspired. So it was very nice talking to them, and they talk with their language, we talk with our engineering language, but then really getting hints and ideas. So inspiration was definitely thanks to the interaction with doctors. I have other question. When the ventilator will start the production? When the ventilator will start production soon, hopefully. So again, we are certifying. We are beginning certification. Certification requires time. I can say months. I cannot say how many months, but it's not an easy guess. Let's say we are trying our best. Maybe there are a few months, maybe few. This is my answer. What percentage of patients with COVID-19 need ventilator support? So in the slides I've shown, the number is the one currently in intensive care, right? So you can see here the active cases globally are 2.5 million. These are the numbers of 2 days ago. I prepared this presentation 2 days ago, so maybe they are more than 2.5. They are for sure more, but in the range of 2.5 million, let's say. Critical cases are 50,000. So 50,000, and maybe not all these critical cases require ventilation, maybe yes, maybe no. So I would say 50,000 divided 2.5 million, so I have calculator. I'm not as fast as I used to be when I was younger. 1, 2, 3 divided 50, 1, 2, 3. So is approximately 2%. This is my estimate. Again, I'm an engineer. Doctors may have a different information, but my number is 2%. Other question. Does the UAE have this quantity available at present? Yes. UAE, as I told you, there are countries, I mean developed countries, I mean best practice countries, they have between 10 to 30 ventilators per 100,000 population. The current number, average in the UAE is even less, is 0.7. So you can figure out that this is not an issue in the UAE. Then what is the cost of a regular ventilator on the market? In my presentation I explained is $30,000 to $50,000. What parameters should be considered in the building of a ventilator to assure patient safety and ventilator reliability? Is a humidity sensor essential? Safety. Safety, we need to be redundant. So more than one sensor for the same thing. For example, pressure. I think it's mandatory to have redundancy. Also controller. We cannot afford a bug. Alarms. If something is wrong, we need alarm. Actually, I didn't mention, but our ventilator has an alarm, has a buzzer that make a very audible noise when something goes wrong, and especially when ventilation parameters are not correct. And safety, of course, also energy, let's say autonomy, and we need to be sure that our system is battery operated and power cord. So you have both. So again, it's good to have some autonomously operated with battery, some autonomy with the battery. And of course, there are many other things to take into account. Is a humidity sensor essential? Is important. Maybe not essential, but is very important. We need to know what is the exchange of water vapor in addition to oxygen and CO2. Then let me check. One colleague, actually, Khalifa University, I'm not sure if you spoke about the following. These ventilators require important safety measures. Okay, we talked about safety. Yes, we talked about safety. Then approximate cost for mass production. Again, I told you is $500. This is our estimate. Actually, in the team, I didn't mention in the team, but a new joiner comes from systems engineering, and we are actually designing somehow the factory. So it's very interesting exercise. And Emre, Dr. Emre. So mass production, we are targeting as an exercise at the moment, but this is our target. Production of 20,000 units, and with about a throughput of 200 to 300 a day. And with these numbers, let's say the cost is $500 per unit, all included, including factory establishment. What is the time frame for the certification of the machine for the medical community? Certification takes time, usually 1 year. Usually, we are trying to speed up a little bit this process, and thanks also to some special, let's say, regulatory framework due to the outbreak. So countries are I'm not saying relaxing regulations, but are creating a little bit exceptions, so procedures can be faster. Does the ventilator have applications in the future in normal healthcare situations beyond the coronavirus pandemic? Yes, in a research environment for sure. So we plan to have this platform as a open platform. So because we are developing the platform, we can master the use of the platform. So it becomes an open system, and so you can really do beautiful things in research. You can put data, you can export data, you can create a database, you can work on database, you can do many things, but also in the clinical, let's say, scenario in lower income countries. So I think there is a future for this technology, hopefully. In normal healthcare situations, yes, we have seen different design of ventilators. What are the benefits of having a fully pneumatic ventilator versus a motor-driven ventilator? Beautiful question for an engineer. I'll go a little bit technical here. The general public may be a little bit, I'm sorry. So basically, with a mechanical ventilation, with the motor, let's say, or with an actuator pushing on this element, you don't know exactly you have the compliance of your balloon involved. So if, for example, you squeeze and there is resistance, some output resistance, the balloon can deform, right? More. So with the same stroke or with the same displacement, you get a different flow. With pneumatic solution, you are surrounding your system. So if you read the pressure of the air outside the system and the volume of air you inserted, you know exactly what is the volume inside, so how much volume you are delivering. So I think it's a technology that better adapts to precise control of tidal volumes with varying lungs compliance. Lungs compliance is the fact that not all patients have the same softness, let's say, of lungs. So you need to be sure, independent from what is that compliance, what volume you are giving. So I don't see, yes, more. What precautions are taken from the reuse of this device from one patient to the next? Okay, so again, this is very important, disinfection. Disinfection and regeneration of some of the parts. So our design is made in a way you can easily disassemble that box, take out the resuscitator, throw it, and put a new one. Resuscitator cost is $50. So that's a disposable part. So this is a precaution. So we need to change many disposable parts of the device that are a fraction of the cost of the total device, and then disinfect the rest. how can it move to next stage of validation, especially in the UAE? We addressed a little bit this. So we need to do extensive tests on mannequin, so more tests on physical simulators. Then we need to have an IRB, so an ethical protocol approved. And then we can start patient and then certification, so a number of steps. Hi Cesare, underwater rebreather has 3 oxygen sensors to check real-time amount of breathing solution. Do you think is a possible solution also in this ventilator? Yeah, oxygenation, of course, is a very important parameter. I think is a little bit less critical than in underwater scenarios, where, of course, you have ambient pressure due to depth that is creating special condition for oxygenation and blood oxygen exchange. So I think underwater in general, in extreme and sport medicine, requirements are even higher. But yes, of course, oxygen sensors are important. We can have different degrees of deployment. We can have a deployment with just the simple oxygen flow regulation from the wall of the hospital. You have this oxygen and liter per minute, and then you know on average what the patient gets. But of course, having a sensor is better. Given the current situation, many organizations and countries are working towards open source ventilator designs. Are you looking to collaborate with such groups? Yes, we are in contact. We are in contact with a couple of them. Of course, this is a scientific effort with no profit at all. What I should say here is that it's good that many groups are doing the same things in this context, to have like local capability. So again, in this framework, open source, sharing knowledge is very, very important, because people can replicate. So can replicate, and they can, or they can contribute. So yes, definitely. Okay, I think questions are over, or time is over. I don't know. Let me see. Yes, time is up. No more questions. So thank you, everyone, and thank you for your time. And I hope doctors and listening were not too much, let's say, upset because of some mistakes I may have done. But again, there are doctors we collaborate